I've got a super fun gingerbread themed video for you today. I'm going to be showing you how to make a table runner Christmas ornament and an applique jumper. Well, sweatshirt for you probably is the word you're used to. And I'll be using my AccuQuilt to make it along with my gingerbread cookie die. And the really fun thing is my friend Carolina Moore is also making 3 projects using her AccuQuilt and die. So in total, we have 6 different projects for you. Now, if you've got one of these dies and haven't been sure what to do with it, or you've been thinking about getting one, well, we've got 6 really fun, easy projects for you. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is make our gingerbread cookies, and this little guy measures 4.5 inches tall. So what I did was I cut a strip of fabric that measures around 5.5 inches. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, if you don't have an AccuQuilt cookie cutter, you could always just make a template and do this the traditional way. But obviously I'm going to use my AccuQuilt because it's a whole lot of fun and way quicker. So then what we're going to need is some Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. And what this is a double-sided adhesive. It will adhere to our fabric at the top, and then it will adhere it to our quilt or our table runner. So this is my go-to. So what I did was I cut a strip of that as well. And that measures around 5.5 inches also. Now what I'm going to do is just press that onto my fabric. So let's go and do that. So I'll just give my fabric a press so it's nice and smooth. And then what I'll do is I'll take my Heat and Bond, place the sticky side down onto the fabric, make sure it's smoothed out, and then I'll just press. And it just takes a minute for the glue to melt and to stick onto the fabric. So I'll just do this all the way along until it's adhered. Then I'm just going to flip it over and give it a quick press on this side to make sure it's really adhered. So I've got my die here and I'm going to cut 2 at a time. So I don't want to waste my fabric, so I'm just going to fold it over and just eyeball it and make sure it's going to be coming past its arms, which are the widest part of the die. And then when I'm happy that it is sitting within the die on all 4 sides, I'm just going to put our little mat on top like that, and then we're just going to pop it through. Okay. Whoop, so we've got 1, 2 little gingerbread men. Aren't they so cute? And then what I'm going to do is just carry on doing that until I've cut all of this fabric. Now, to do the table runner, we only need 8, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut them all anyway because I'll be using them for other projects. So again, just making sure I'm capturing the die there with all parts of the fabric. Now we're getting a little family. This, my friends, is so much quicker than cutting them all out individually, which is what I would normally do. So I'm pretty happy to be trying something new and giving these AccuQuilt dies a go. Now, how quick was that to get all our perfectly cut little gingerbread men? So that's the first part of our process. So now we're going to cut our 5-inch squares. Now this die actually came with the Go Bolt, so that's really handy. Now for my table runner, my pink fabric is my main fabric and I need to cut 14 squares. And then I need to cut 4 of the peach, 5 of the white and 4 of the mustard. Now that's just because I want to have this pattern, and you can see the image above of the pattern I'm trying to create. Now, of course, you could make whatever pattern you like, but for now, I'm just going to have fun cutting my pink fabric, and I've cut it again roughly at about 5.5 inches. I'm just going to place it on top and make sure that we're covering this lighter gray part, which is the die, well, where the die cut, sorry. So I just want to make sure that salvage is out of it. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm just going to fold it over because we can do 4 layers with this. With the electric AccuQuilt. Just going to smooth that out. Find my mat, pop that on top. I'm actually going to pop it in this way. It's turned off automatically. I'm just going to turn it back on. There we go. And there are my perfect little 5-inch squares. I'm just going to carry on until I have all the pieces that I need. I think I was pushing it, but it does look like I just managed to get another set of perfect 5-inch squares there without a lot of waste at all. That's really minimal waste, so I'm really happy with that. I'll just carry on now, guys, and I'll see you back here when I'm done. Now I've got my 5-inch pieces placed in the rows. So for this first row, we need 5 pink, 4 apricot. Row 2 is 5 white, 4 pink. And row 3 is 5 pink and 4 mustard. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to sew each of the rows together with the colors alternated. So I'll go pink, peach, pink, peach, pink, peach, pink, and so on until I've sewn all my rows together. And of course, remember I said you could sew yours however you like. I just thought it would be nice to create a bit of a pattern. Okay, so I'm going to start with row 1. I'll just pop those out of the way. All I'll do is take a pink and a peach, place them right sides together, line up those edges, and if I'd like to, I'll pop a pin in. You could pop a pin in on either edge, but I'm just going to sew them because I want this to be a quick project. So I've got my 1/4 inch foot on, so I get my 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm stitching at stitch length 2 and I'm using wonderful confetti thread. I'll just start on the very edge and sew to the other edge. I'm just coming right off the edge there. I'm just going to take my next 2 pieces and sew them together, which is called chain piecing. It just saves a little bit of time. Cutting my thread. Now I'll just snip those chains carefully, making sure I don't cut my fabric. Then I will sew each of those pieces together, including the remaining last piece that I didn't sew. So just opening that up, doing the pink, because remember we're alternating. Now I've finished sewing my first row, I'm going to carry on and sew the remainder of my rows. So now we're just going to press our seams and we're going to press them all towards our pink fabric. So just setting our stitches and then pressing it towards the pink. I'm going to finger press, making sure there's no creases in here, and then pressing. Then doing the same for this seam. Making sure that seam is pressing towards the pink, finger pressing, and I will carry on and do this for this entire row and then the other 2 rows. Now we're going to sew our 3 rows together, so I'll just set this bottom row aside, take the row 1 and 2, place them right sides together, and then find the seams and nest them. So we've got 1 set of seams pressed and coming this way, 1 set of seams pressed and going that way. We're just going to butt them up against each other. I also like to open it up and check I'm creating a nice straight line there, and then when I'm happy, I'll pop a pin in, and then I'll go along and find all the seams and do exactly the same. So now I'll just sew that row together just like we did before, and as I come up to these seams I'm just going to make sure they're being sewn down in the direction that they were pressed. So I'll keep an eye on that, removing my pins as I need to, and then I'll repeat this for row 3. So now we're just going to set our stitches on our rows, And then I'm going to press the seams. I'm just going to press them up. You can press them out however you like. You could even press them open at this stage. It's really just your personal preference. Just making sure I've got no creases in there. And then I'll carry on until all my seams are pressed nicely. So now for the fun part, and that's ironing on our little gingerbread cookies. So I'm just going to take the backing off. This can be a little bit fiddly, so just peeling off that back paper. Okay, now the gingerbread man, if I fold that in half carefully, about halfway is just right under the arms there. So I'm actually going to put that right on the line of that seam, which is going to make it really easy for me to line up. So the bottom of the arms are lined up right on that seam, just past the seam really. I think that will look tidier. Well, we want his little body to also be in the center, so I'll move that over. And then eyeballing that the head looks about straight. So we're just going to start on this 4 patch here, and then when I'm happy, I'm going to press. I'm going to move those out of the way. And now we've attached our first gingerbread cookie. Then I'm going to just move down. So this was this first 4 patch. We're going to move down to the next 4 patch and do exactly the same. Peeling off that back. Lining up his arms just past that seam there, making sure he's in the center here. And then I will press. And then I'm just going to carry on doing this until I've gone all the way down to the end of my table runner. So we're doing it on every 4 patch. So I'm not going to do one here, I'm going to do one here. So I just like to give it a little tug, which kind of tears the paper a little bit and then helps it easier to grab. And this is just looking so darling. Now we are going to come along and applique that. We'll sew stitches to secure it, but this is just going to hold it in place for us. Whoop. I'm getting into a bit of a pickle with my iron cord and everything. Just making sure it's all smoothed out nicely. Okay, like I said, I am getting in a pickle. There we go. Just checking that's all still straight and pressing. Okay, now I'm going to turn it around. And I'm going to do exactly the same on this side, except now I'm going to start with this 4 patch. So we're alternating the patches, and then we're going to have it facing me, so that way it doesn't matter which way you're facing, the gingerbread men will be facing you. I don't even think that made sense, but I think you know what I was trying to say. So I'll just carry on doing this now for the rest of the gingerbread men. So I've done this 4 patch, moving on to this 4 patch. Now I'm going to stitch around my gingerbread cookies. You can use whatever stitch you like. A zigzag is really popular, blanket stitch. I'm actually just going to do a straight stitch about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge there all the way around every single gingerbread cookie. Just do whatever stitch you like to use and be creative, have some fun. I'm just going to again use a brown. I'm being a little bit boring, but I think my table runner is kind of looking a little bit wild and crazy anyway, so brown might help settle it down a little bit. So I'm just going to slowly stitch around, and I'm just going to go really nice and slow around all the curves, because I find when you start going too fast, that's when you start having accidents that you do not want. Now it is going to take me a minute to do all these gingerbread men, and they don't have to be absolutely perfect. I mean, that's the beauty of handmade things, is that it's not meant to look like it was made on a production line. So just have fun. So I'm coming right back up to where I started. I'm just going to hold that thread so I don't create a big huge bird's nest. I'm just going to go past where I started, and then I will just do a back stitch. Now if you didn't want to do back stitches so that it wasn't noticeable, you could have started by bringing your thread up at the back and the bottom, and then now keeping long tails and tying knots. I'm not too worried about it. I think that looks just fine. I'm happy with that. Now I'll carry on and, well, first of all, I'll trim this thread, and then I'll just carry on and do the same to all my other gingerbread men. So there we have our table runner top all done. Now, isn't that just so cute? I'll admit my fabric choices are a little bit out there on this project. Now all you need to do is baste and quilt and bind just like you usually do. And I think it would actually look really cute if you wanted to just carry on with this exact same pattern to make a quilt top. I think this would be really adorable. Now I'm just going to make a few more gingerbread men for my ornament and my sweater. I'm using different fabric this time. So I'll just cut these and we'll move right on to making our ornament. So I've got a piece of felt that measures 4.5 inches by 6 inches. It doesn't have to be exact. And then I'm going to take my gingerbread man. I've removed the backing and I'm just going to place it on top and then press it. We just want that glue to melt. Okay. Now I'm just going to stitch around the edge of my gingerbread man. I'm just picking a line on my foot to follow. It doesn't have to be exact, about 1/8 of an inch in or even a little bit more. I'm stitching at stitch length 2.4. This is just more a craft project, so you can do whatever you like at this stage. Just as I'm sewing around the edge, I just slow down around these corners. And if you get stuck, then I would just completely stop, turn or pivot, and then carry on. And then when I come back to where I've started, I will just do a back stitch, cut my thread, and then I'm just going to trim those loose threads there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut around the felt, echoing the shape of my gingerbread man, and I'm going to leave about, again, 1/8 of an inch or a little bit more felt showing. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. This is just a hand. Oh, these scissors aren't sharp enough at the point. Okay, so you will need scissors that are sharp, especially at the point, to get a nice shape. So coming in. You're better to cut a little bit more than not enough, and then you could always go around and fix it if you think it's a bit too much. So I'm just going to do this by eye. So just like that. So now I've got a second piece of felt that measures the same size that we started with, plus I've got a piece of ribbon that measures around 7 inches long. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to place my gingerbread man on top of my second piece of felt, take my ribbon and fold that in half, line up those edges, and then I'm just going to place it in between the two layers of felt, and I want to have it really in there so that it's not going to eventually pull off. I want it nice and straight. And then I will just pop a pin in to hold that in place. Just like that. Now what we're going to do is sew around the edge of our gingerbread man, but right on the edge of where the fabric is and that second layer of felt. And we're going to leave an opening on this side of the leg. I'm starting right at the bottom of my foot there. I will just go forward a stitch or two and then do a back stitch just to keep it in place, because when we are trying to stuff it, it tends to pull at those stitches. And then I'm just going to slowly go right around the edge of, like I said, the fabric gingerbread man, but making sure I'm sewing on my felt. So I'm just going to take my time and I'll see you when I've done this. So now I'm coming back up to that leg that I started on. I will go down a couple of stitches and then I will just do a back stitch and then cut my thread. And I will trim those loose threads. So now I'm going to take some polyfill. This is a ridiculously big bag. We only need a real little bit, but I just wanted to show you what I'm using. I'll put a link in the description below. I'll put all the links down below, by the way, including all the cutting instructions, supplies list, etc. Then we've got a little opening here now. I'm just going to take my polyfill and just place it in there. Now, you can use as much or as little as you like. You could even skip this whole step if you didn't want it to look a little bit puffy. I personally think it looks better with just a little bit, not too much. But this is really a personal preference. So just fill it with as much or as little polyfill as you like. And what I'm doing is I'm just making sure I'm pushing it into the head and the hands and the leg. I just want it to be the same sort of puffiness everywhere. Does that make sense? It kind of sounds weird, but I think you know what I mean. I can also use my point turner to help kind of push that in there. It's kind of a little bit fiddly. So now I'll do that bottom leg. Well, bottom leg. The left leg. What's the bottom leg? And the right leg. See how he's looking cute and puffy? Now, again, it's just really a personal preference, exactly how puffy you'd like it to be. I think it looks nice, kind of a medium puffiness. Anyway, I'm going on too much about puffy and what you're going to do. Just do it however you like. Right, and then I think I'm happy with that. Now, all I'm going to do is sew this opening closed. So starting right on that top, but I want to make sure I'm starting before I finished last time, and again right next to the edge of that fabric. I'll go forward a couple of stitches and go back again so it's nice and secure. I'll stitch along and then I'll just come right past where I stopped last time and do a back stitch. Cut my thread and then I'll trim any loose threads and then we'll move on to the last step. So now all I'm going to do is trim the excess felt off following the line of my felt that we cut originally. And we just want to be careful of our little ribbon there. So I will start right there. Just going to come right across and cut like that, holding the ribbon right out of the way. So it sits just like that. Now all I'll do is follow along the line of my felt, trimming all this excess off. Okay, and if you have little scruffy little bits like that bit there I can see, you can just go back and fix them up. Make sure you're happy with how it's looking. So there's our little ornament. Hasn't that turned out absolutely lovely? Now, of course, you could have embroidered eyes and a mouth on, and you would do that once you've sewn the fabric onto the felt before you do anything else. And then I also wanted to show you this AccuQuilt die that you can get, which is cookie decorations. It's got the little dress, the heart, the bow, and the button details. So if you wanted to add on to this die, you could always grab this, which is a lot of fun too. And my last idea to use with your gingerbread cookie die is to decorate a jumper. Well, I call it a jumper, you might call it a sweatshirt. Now, I've already pre-cut my little gingerbread men, and I thought they would just look absolutely adorable just appliqued onto my sweatshirt just like that. So pre-wash your sweatshirt. Then what I did was I did put it on and I placed these on and checked the placement, and they actually work perfectly, just sitting right underneath this V, the first one in the center. And then I'm going to place one on each side. And isn't that going to be adorable? So just like what we've done, I'm going to remove that backing and then I'm going to iron them on, stitch
around the edge, and I'm just going to do a straight stitch again, nothing too fancy. And then I'm going to have this really cute little handmade decorated Christmas sweater to wear. Isn't that just adorable? So now I'm just going to press them in place. What I have done is I've taken a ruler and I've just made sure that they're sitting nice and straight going across. And I've just measured the spacing so that they look pretty even. Then I'm just going to really carefully press them, just like we've been doing. And then I will sew around with a straight stitch again. Now, you can get a stabilizer to use on the back to help it stay stable. That's the sweatshirt itself, because it's quite stretchy. It's a knit. I do recommend that. I just don't have any on hand, so I'm just going to wing it. But if you have trouble with it, I think you'll find using a bit of stabilizer at the back will be really, really helpful. Okay, now I'm just going to sew them on. So my cameraman just asked me a really good question. Well, what do I mean? Where's the stabilizer going? A stabilizer would go underneath and it would just help keep this top fabric stable. That's what a stabilizer is, and that's where you'd put it. So I just wanted to clarify that. So thank you to my cameraman for asking the question. So here's my cute little jumper. What do you think? Now I keep calling it a sweatshirt, but actually I think you call it a sweater. I get so confused with all the different words. I think it turned out absolutely adorable. I'm thrilled. And you know, there's all this rage to have matching sweaters or pajamas. Well, how about you made your family a matching set? I think that would be absolutely lovely.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Now, I did want to tell you something really fun that YouTube has introduced. They now have voice replies. So if you leave a comment, I can reply to you with like a voice message. So do leave a comment and I will randomly pick 3 people to leave a personalized voice reply. And I'm so excited because it's really a lot of fun to do. Now I'm going to put a link up above so you can go and watch Carolina Moore's 3 projects using this really cute gingerbread die by AccuQuilt. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you.